Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. In a quiet countryside cottage, 17-year-old Elena Ward finds a small, dusty diary hidden beneath an old wooden floorboard. It once belonged to her grandmother, a woman known for her calm smile and strange wisdom. At first, the diary looks ordinary, until Elena sees the date. The first entry is written for tomorrow. Each page seems to tell the future, from small moments, like a postman slipping, to bigger ones that could change everything. As Elena reads more, she discovers that the diary might not only reveal the truth, it might create it. And now, she must decide. Should she keep reading or close it forever? Pause. This is the diary that might hold the truth. Elena Ward stood in her grandmother's small cottage, holding a dusty old book in her hands. The cover was soft and faded. The air smelled like old paper and lavender. The house was quiet, but she could hear the wind moving outside. She had not been here in years. Everything looked the same, just a little older, a little sadder. Her grandmother had passed away 2 weeks ago. The cottage now belonged to her. The lawyer had given her the key and told her she could come any time. So she came that morning, wanting to look around, to remember, and maybe to say goodbye in her own way. She walked around the small rooms. The furniture was covered with white cloth. The floor creaked under her feet. There were pictures on the walls, and some old, some new. Elena saw a picture of her grandmother smiling beside the garden. It made her chest hurt a little. In the bedroom, she noticed something strange. One of the wooden floorboards near the bed was loose. She knelt down and pulled it up carefully. Beneath it was a small cloth bundle tied with a thin ribbon. Her heart started to beat faster. She opened it slowly. Inside was a small diary with a brown leather cover. The diary looked very old. She ran her fingers over it. There was no name on the front. She sat on the bed and opened it to the first page. The handwriting was neat and small, the kind her grandmother used when writing recipes or notes. At the top of the page was a date. November 12th, 2025. Elena frowned. That was strange. Today was November 11th, 2025. The diary was dated tomorrow. She thought maybe her grandmother had written the date wrong, but she kept reading. The first line said, "At 8:17 in the morning, the postman will slip on the stone step and drop 3 letters. 1 letter will slide under the porch. A dog will bark twice. A white car will drive past the lane." Elena blinked. It was written like it already happened, but the date was for tomorrow. She turned the page. The next entry said, "At noon, the school in town will close early because the heat will stop working. The children will cheer. A girl wearing a red scarf will forget her backpack." There were more lines, but she stopped reading. Her hands were shaking. What was this? Was her grandmother writing stories? Or was this something else? She closed the diary and stared at it. Her grandmother had always been a quiet woman. She liked tea, flowers, and reading. She wasn't someone who made up strange things. She always told Elena, "The truth is a small bird. Hold it gently." Elena laughed a little, but her laugh sounded nervous. She placed the diary on the small table beside the bed and went to make tea in the kitchen. She needed to think. The kitchen smelled like dust and lemon soap. Everything was just as her grandmother had left it. Even the cup with blue flowers that she always used. Elena boiled water and made tea, trying to calm down. She told herself that maybe the diary was just a coincidence. Her grandmother could have written those things years ago. Maybe she just liked to guess things that might happen. Still, the words about tomorrow stayed in her mind. When night came, she sat by the window and looked out at the quiet garden. The moonlight touched the leaves. She decided she would test the diary. She would wait and see if anything from the first entry actually happened. If it did, she would decide what to do. She put the diary on the table beside her bed and tried to sleep, but sleep would not come easily. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her grandmother's handwriting and the strange words. "At 8:17 in the morning, the postman will slip. 3 letters. A dog will bark twice." When morning came, Elena dressed quickly and went outside to the front porch. The air was cool, and the stone step was wet from the rain the night before. She looked at her phone. It was 8:10 a.m. Her heart started to beat faster. She waited. At 8:17, just as the diary said, the postman came up the path. He smiled and said, "Good morning." Then his foot slipped on the wet stone. The mail scattered into the air. One letter slid under the porch. Elena's mouth fell open. A dog barked twice somewhere down the road. A white car passed the lane. It all happened exactly like the diary said. "Are you all right?" The postman asked her, a little embarrassed. "Yes," Elena said softly. "I'm fine." She helped him pick up the letters, but her hands were shaking. When he left, she sat on the porch step, staring at the letters in her hand. The world around her looked the same, but she didn't feel the same at all. Back inside, she took out the diary again. The next part talked about the school. She didn't really believe it yet, but after what she saw, she couldn't ignore it. So she decided to test it again. She walked the short distance into town and waited near the school building. It was almost noon. Children were playing in the yard. Teachers stood by the doors. Everything looked normal. Then, just after noon, she saw a man come out of the school office looking worried. He said something to a teacher, and a few moments later, the bell rang. The children started cheering. The teachers were telling them to go home. The heating system had stopped working. Elena stared in shock. Then she saw a small girl with a bright red scarf standing by the fence crying. She had forgotten her backpack inside. Elena's knees felt weak. The diary was right again. She went home quickly, her mind spinning. She sat at the table and stared at the diary. What kind of book was this? How could her grandmother know things before they happened? She turned to the last entry for that date. It said there would be a meeting in the town hall at 8 o'clock that night. People would argue. Someone would knock over a chair. Then there would be fire. Fire. Elena's throat felt dry. Could she stop it from happening? Should she go there? If she told someone, they wouldn't believe her. They'd think she was crazy. She decided she had to see it for herself. That evening, she went to the town hall. The air was cold and the streets were quiet. The hall was full of people. They were arguing about a new road. Elena sat near the front, watching the stage. She looked at the chairs on the stage. One looked loose, shaking a little when someone sat on it. She couldn't stop staring at it. People kept shouting. Someone hit the table. The man in the loose chair stood up too fast, and the chair fell. It hit a lamp. The lamp fell too, hitting the floor. There was a small spark, then a flicker of flame on the curtain. "Fire!" Elena shouted. People gasped. Someone threw water. Others stamped on the flames. The fire went out quickly. Nobody was hurt. But if she hadn't seen it coming, it could have been worse. As people calmed down, she felt dizzy. The diary had been right again. Every word. When she got home, she placed the diary on the table and stared at it for a long time. She was scared now, but also curious. Her grandmother's diary didn't just tell the truth. It told the future. That night, Elena could not sleep. Every sound in the cottage made her jump. The wind moved through the trees outside, and the house creaked as if it was breathing. The diary lay open on the table beside her bed. The pages seemed almost alive in the moonlight. She kept thinking about what had happened at the town hall. If she had not gone there, maybe the fire would have grown bigger. Maybe people would have been hurt. But because she read the diary, she had been ready. It frightened her and amazed her at the same time. She finally fell asleep close to dawn. When she woke, the first thing she did was open the diary. The next page had 2 short entries written neatly in her grandmother's handwriting. At 9:31 in the morning, a bird will crash into the kitchen window and fly away, leaving a feather behind. At 6:05 in the evening, a police officer will knock on the door and ask about a missing bracelet. Elena read those lines again and again. A bird hitting the window didn't sound dangerous, but a police officer coming to her door, that sounded serious. She didn't know what bracelet the diary meant. She went to the kitchen and made tea. The clock on the wall said 9:10. She stood by the window and waited. At 9:31 exactly, a small shadow moved across the glass. A bird struck the window with a soft thump. It fell, flapped its wings, and flew away. On the windowsill, a single white feather stayed behind. Elena picked it up carefully. The feather was small and soft. Her heart was beating fast. The diary had been right again. She placed the feather on the table and looked around the room. Everything felt strange now, as if time itself was following what was written in the diary. She looked at the clock. It was 9:35. That meant she had about 8 hours before the police came. All day she kept glancing at the clock, waiting, wondering. At noon, she ate lunch but couldn't taste it. She walked around the cottage trying to think about something else. She checked drawers, shelves, and cupboards, searching for anything that looked like a bracelet. She didn't even know what she was looking for. Silver, gold, beads. Nothing seemed out of place. Then she remembered the old chest in her grandmother's bedroom. She opened it and found clothes, photos, and a small velvet pouch. She untied it and found a bracelet inside. It was made of silver with tiny blue stones that sparkled even in the dim light. It looked expensive and very old. Elena turned it over in her hands. There was a mark carved inside the clasp, the letter M. She didn't know what it meant. Maybe it belonged to her grandmother's friend or relative. She put it back in the pouch and kept it on the table. The afternoon passed slowly. Every sound made her jump. At 5:50 p.m., her heart began to pound. She made tea again just to keep her hands busy. At 6:05, there was a soft knock at the door. She froze. Then another knock came, louder this time. She walked to the door and opened it slowly. A police officer stood outside, holding his hat in one hand. His coat was wet from the light rain. "Good evening," he said kindly. "Are you Miss Elena Ward?" "Yes," she said quietly. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said. "I'm looking into an old case, a missing bracelet from many years ago. It may be connected to this property. May I come in for a few minutes?" Elena's mouth went dry. She stepped aside and let him in. The officer looked around the kitchen. "This used to be Mrs. Lillian Ward's home, correct?" "Your grandmother?" "Yes," Elena said. He nodded. "We found a record from about 15 years ago. A silver bracelet with blue stones went missing during a fire at a nearby house. Your grandmother's name was mentioned in an old letter. We're just checking to see if anything matching that description is here." Elena hesitated. She thought about hiding the bracelet, but something inside her told her not to lie. Her grandmother had always said, "The truth always finds its way, even if you close the door." "I found something this morning," she said. She walked to the table, opened the pouch, and showed him the bracelet. The officer's eyes widened. "That looks exactly like it." "May I?" She nodded. He picked it up carefully and studied the blue stones and the tiny letter M on the clasp. "This might be what we've been looking for," he said. "Do you know where your grandmother got it?" Elena shook her head. "No, I just found it in an old chest." The officer wrote down a few notes in his small notebook. "Thank you, Miss Ward. This helps a lot. I'll take it for now, and we'll contact you once we confirm the details." He gave her a polite smile and then left. The sound of his car faded down the road. Elena stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the rain. Her heart was racing. The diary had been right again. Every word. But what did it all mean? How did her grandmother know all these things before they happened? She sat at the table and looked at the empty spot where the bracelet had been. Maybe her grandmother wasn't guessing. Maybe she knew something, or someone, who told her the future. She thought about calling her mother, but her mother didn't believe in strange things like this. She would only tell her to stop worrying and go back to the city. Instead, Elena opened the diary again. The next page was blank, except for one short line at the bottom. "The truth will knock twice before entering." She didn't know what that meant. She waited, staring at the door. 10 seconds passed. Then, knock, knock. Her heart stopped. She opened the door again. It wasn't the police this time. It was a man she hadn't seen in years. Her uncle, Mark. "Elena," he said, smiling nervously. "It's been a long time," she blinked in surprise. "Uncle Mark? What are you doing here?" He looked tired. "I was driving through town. Thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing. Heard about your grandmother." "I'm sorry." Elena nodded. "Thanks." He stepped inside and looked around. "The place hasn't changed much, has it?" "No," she said. "It's the same." Mark looked at the table. "I see you found the old diary." Elena froze. "You know about it?" He nodded slowly. Yes, your grandmother kept it hidden for years. She told me once that it wasn't just a diary. She said it carried truths, things that hadn't happened yet. I didn't believe her, of course. I thought it was just one of her stories. Elena stared at him. It's not just a story, she said. It's real. Mark's eyes softened. So you've seen it work? She nodded. Everything it says happens. He sighed and rubbed his face. Then I think you should be careful, Elena. That diary doesn't just tell the truth. It might make the truth happen. What do you mean? She asked. Sometimes, he said quietly, when people know what's coming, they act in ways that make it real. Maybe that's how it works. It shows you the truth, and then you walk right into it. Elena didn't like the sound of that. She thought about the fire, the bird, the police. All of them had come true. Had she somehow helped them happen by waiting for them? Mark stood up. Listen, he said. That diary can be dangerous. Maybe it's better to put it away. Don't let it decide what you do next. He looked at her for a long moment. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise, she said. He smiled faintly. Good. Take care of yourself. When he left, Elena sat by the window again. The rain had stopped, and the moon was shining through the clouds. She looked at the diary. Its cover looked darker now, almost as if it was waiting for her to open it again. But she didn't. Not yet. She just whispered to the empty room. Grandma, what kind of truth did you leave for me? Outside, the wind blew softly, and the house seemed to sigh. Elena sat in silence long after her uncle left. The room felt heavy, as if her grandmother's presence was still there, watching. The diary lay on the table, quiet and closed. She kept staring at it, afraid to open it again, but too curious to walk away. The lamp flickered. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sound of dripping water still filled the air. She stood up, poured herself some tea, and sat back down. She thought about what her uncle had said, that maybe the diary didn't just tell the truth, but made it happen. The idea made her shiver. Could her grandmother have known that? Maybe that was why she had hidden it under the floor. Elena decided she would not open the diary again until morning. She put it inside a drawer and locked it. Then she went to bed, but sleep did not come easily. She kept hearing soft sounds, a creak, a whisper, a knock. Once she even thought she heard a voice, quiet and far away, saying her name. She turned on the lamp and sat up. The clock said 2:11 a.m. The house was still. She got up, went to the drawer, and took out the diary. She opened it slowly. There was new writing on the page. She had left it blank before, but now words covered it in her grandmother's handwriting. The truth hides in the fire you stopped. The truth wears a name you already know. Elena frowned. What did that mean? The fire you stopped. That had to mean the one at the town hall. And the truth wears a name you already know. Could it mean her uncle? Her heart started to beat fast. She turned the page and saw another message, smaller, almost hidden near the bottom. Look in the chest again. Elena stood up and walked quickly to her grandmother's bedroom. She opened the old chest again and pushed aside the folded clothes. Under them, she found a small metal box she hadn't noticed before. It was locked. She searched through the drawers until she found a tiny key on a string. It fit perfectly. Inside the box were old letters tied with a ribbon. The paper was yellow and soft. The top one had her uncle's name, Mark, written in her grandmother's handwriting. She hesitated, then untied the ribbon and opened the letter. The words made her hands tremble. My dear Mark, I know what you did. I found the bracelet in your bag. I know about the fire in town 15 years ago. You said it was an accident, but I saw the guilt in your eyes. You are my son, and I love you, but truth cannot stay buried forever. Someday it will come to you again, maybe through her. Elena stopped reading. Through her. Did her grandmother mean her, Elena? Her knees felt weak. She sat down on the edge of the bed. The room seemed colder. She understood now why the diary had written about the bracelet and the police. It was connected to her uncle all along. She read the rest of the letter. I have written what I know in my diary. It will find its way to where it is needed. The diary only writes when truth is near. Do not fear it, but do not use it for gain. The truth is alive. Elena folded the letter and put it back in the box. Her heart was pounding. She realized her grandmother had left her not just a home, but a secret, one that had been waiting for years. She stayed awake until morning, watching the diary. When the first light came through the curtains, she opened it again. New words had appeared. At 9 a.m., a man will return. He will carry his guilt like a shadow. Do not turn him away. At exactly 9 gua, someone knocked on the door. Elena already knew who it would be. She opened the door and saw her uncle standing there. His face looked tired and his eyes were red. Elena, he said softly. I need to talk. She let him in. He sat at the table and held his hands together. You talked to the police yesterday, didn't you? She nodded. Yes, they came about the bracelet, he sighed. Then you know. I read Grandma's letter, she said quietly. He looked down. I thought she destroyed it. I asked her to. But she wouldn't. She forgave you, Elena said. But she didn't forget. He rubbed his face. I didn't mean to cause that fire, Elena. It was supposed to be simple. I was young, foolish. A man I knew said there was money in that house, but it went wrong. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I know, she said. But hiding it made it worse. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'm going to tell the truth now. I went to the police station this morning. I told them everything. They said they'll look into it, but it's been so long that maybe there won't be charges. Still, I needed to say it. Elena felt something lift from her chest, a strange mix of sadness and relief. Grandma wanted that, she said. She wanted the truth to come out. Mark smiled faintly. She always did. He looked at the diary on the table. That book? It's hers, isn't it? Yes, Elena said. It writes things on its own. He stared at it for a long moment. Maybe it's not magic, he said softly. Maybe it's her way of speaking, even after she's gone. They sat in silence. The sunlight fell across the table, touching the diary's cover. For the first time, it didn't look dark or frightening. It looked peaceful. Elena opened it again, half afraid, half curious. There were only a few lines now. The truth has been spoken. Let peace stay where pain once lived. She smiled through her tears. I think that's the last message, she whispered. Her uncle stood up. I should go, he said. But thank you, Elena, for listening. For believing, she nodded. Goodbye, Uncle Mark. When he left, the house felt lighter. The air was calm. She walked to the window and looked out at the garden. The wind moved through the flowers her grandmother had planted years ago. She sat at the table again and opened the diary to the last page. It was blank. She took a pen and thought for a long moment. Then she wrote in small letters, The truth has found its way home. She closed the diary and smiled. That evening, she went to visit her grandmother's grave at the edge of the field. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and orange. She placed a small flower on the grave and spoke softly. Grandma, she said, I found the truth. I think you knew this would happen. Thank you for trusting me. The wind moved gently through the trees, and for a moment, she thought she heard her grandmother's voice, light and kind, whispering. Hold it gently, my dear. Elena wiped her eyes and smiled. She walked back to the cottage, feeling calmer than she had in days. That night, she placed the diary back in the drawer. She didn't lock it this time. She let it rest. She didn't need it anymore to know the truth. When she woke the next morning, she saw the diary lying open on the table. One last line had appeared, the handwriting soft and careful like a goodbye. You held the truth gently. I am proud of you, tears filled her eyes. She touched the page, feeling warmth under her fingers. Then she closed the diary for the last time. Outside, the sun rose over the fields. The air smelled like morning and peace. The cottage was quiet, but not lonely anymore. Elena made tea, sat by the window, and watched the light fill the room. She didn't know if the diary would ever write again. She didn't need to know. The truth had finally found its place, and so had she. The old diary now lies silent on the table, its pages blank, its purpose complete. Elena no longer fears what tomorrow might bring. She has learned that truth isn't something written in ink. It's something we choose to live by. Her grandmother's voice still echoes in her heart. Hold it gently. Outside, the wind moves through the garden, carrying the scent of lavender and peace. The cottage is quiet, but no longer lonely. Elena closes the window, smiles, and whispers, "Thank you." Because sometimes the truth we search for was never hidden in a diary. It was hidden within us all along. Subscribe to Crime Loom, and join us as we unravel more heists, mysteries, and untold legends.